Join me in pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes of council from the prior meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Everyone has received a copy of the meeting minutes. Seeing that there is no one that has any objections, I'm going to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the City Council meeting held on October 19th, 2021, as written and dispense with the reading.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Bourne?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes. Special reports. We have no special reports. Letters, communication, citizens' concerns. Anyone has a concern? Seeing none. Administrative reports. Mayor. I'm going to read what I've been told to read. In accordance with Ohio Revised Code 370907, I am submitting for approval the city representative designated by the mayor to represent the city of Perrysburg on the Wood County Board of Health, Wood County Health District. Our designee, Carolyn Rava, is retiring, and Kim Hirschfeld is the designated person that I would like to appoint to fill the term, which ends March 14, 2024. This is being forwarded for council approval.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Bourne?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes. Only other point is to thank all the candidates for their willingness to serve at both City Council and Board of Education. As always, it takes a lot of hard work and effort to put yourself in front of the public for vote and consideration. So thank all the candidates and their support staff teams, and to thank all the voters who today invested themselves in the future of Perrysburg by voting. And lastly, I think all the elected officials who are already on council and who will be on in the new term, we all need to be conscious of how difficult time it is and divisive it can be. We all need to work together to make sure we're always acting in the best interests of the city of Perrysburg. And I look forward to working with the new council. City Administrator?
No report, Your Honor.
Finance Director?
No report.
Thank you. Law Director?
The law director is requesting a very brief executive session.
I will make a motion to go into an executive session regarding
Contract negotiations.
conflict so to see which one would fall under. Would that be collective bargaining matters?
No,
No.
do the one that says
Confidential business
Yes.
information. All right, so I will make retract my first motion. I'll make a motion to move into the executive session for confidential business information of an applicant for an economic development assistance.
Second.
Ordinance very brief.
I'm hoping 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
We'll see.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Bourne?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to return from executive session.
Second. Roll call.
Ms. Bourne?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes. Thank you. Council President report.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have an announcement here. We have a public hearing before City Council from the December 7th, 2021 meeting at 6:20 and another at 6:25. And I too would just like to echo, today is election day, and I would appreciate all the 3 members of council who are up here today during the time they could have been out campaigning to be here for the meetings. And I'd just like to wish everyone luck, as well as those who are running. It's never an easy task to put yourself out there, and I really appreciate everything, and we'll hopefully see what happens tonight.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Committee reports.
Finance?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just going to start with you, I suppose.
All right, no report, Mayor, but I am going to introduce the first reading of our proposed 2022 budget. I know council members have all been discussing their respective budgets and their committees. So now's the time to get the first reading. So, having said that, I would like to introduce ordinance 54-2021. For first reading.
Second.
Do we still say move to the rules be suspended to allow for it?
We want to, yeah, well, no, I'm not going to
This is
move.
just the first reading.
This is the first reading, so I'm not going to move that. those
Well, we
rules-
wouldn't, we still want to say we don't want to have to read through everything.
Reading by, oh, yeah, yes, I'm sorry, for reading by number and title only.
Second.
Excuse me.
Roll call.
Ms. Bourne,
Yes.
No answer.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Matroni,
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Ordinance 54, 2021, making appropriations for current expenditures and other expenditures of the city of Perrysburg, Wood County, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
And our next meeting, I'm not sure, it's going to be
Good night.
the 9th.
I do actually have one question just for the administration to report back regarding the budget. With the additional security that we have up front, I'm curious to see how much it's actually costing for the budget, for the council meetings as well as the committee meetings.
And I would also add, if anybody has any questions, we've done this in the past, please make sure you get them to the administration so they can either go to the committee or so that we're talk everything through. So when it comes for passage, the third reading, all the issues are already out there and we can have a meaningful discussion on anything that's still remaining. Thank you. Safety Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Safety Committee met on October 26th and was called to order at 6 p.m. Committee members present were Mark Weber, Barry Van Huzen, and Deborah Bourne. Also present was Richard Cabot, Pete Sandretto, Amber Rathburn, Patrick Jones, and Christopher Sargent, our new lieutenant. The minutes were approved with Ms. Bourne voting present. The ASR contract, Ms. Cabot explained that this is a 5-year agreement with Northwood, Perrysburg Township, Lake Township, and Rossford. We will be reimbursed for 4/5 of this annually over the life of the contract. As the contract holder and lead entity, Mr. Weber asked if everyone is happy with the services received so far. Ms. Cabot stated that they have not had any blackouts or dropped calls since the inception of the program. Ms. Bourne asked if we have a warranty and use for this. Ms. Cabot answered that they are looking to replace some pieces over the next 2 years, and will bring the warranty back to renewal phase. The committee agreed 3-0 to recommend entering into this contract. The 2022 budget, Chief Jones introduced Lieutenant Christopher Sargent, and then walked the committee through the details of the 2022 budget. Chief Jones explained that they are running out of room as they are growing and will be looking to put in the amended budget money to finish the second floor, which will be approximately $1.4 million. In 2022, the police department is looking to hire 3 additional patrol officers. Ms. Bourne stated that she is really glad they are hiring additional officers and thinks that it is needed. Mr. Weber asked if it is 4 officers minimum on patrol per shift, which Chief Jones said that is correct. But that he's looking to make the minimum 5 or 6 depending on the shift. I did note that the consolidation of line items makes it harder to understand. Mr. Weber asked the budget. Mr. Weber asked Chief Jones if he would like to publicly address the chatter about an animal control officer. Chief Jones explained that animal control, according to our ordinance, is different than nuisance wildlife control. Officers actually handled 70% of the dog-related calls because the calls would come in after the animal control officers' normal hours or on weekends. Ms. Bourne asked if it was taking a lot of time away from the chief and his officers. Loose dog calls average out to less than one every other day. So we cannot justify the need of a full-time animal control officer. Ms. Bourne thinks it would be more advisable to have the ACO position filled. Chief Jones stated that the crossing guards will receive a $1 increase per hour in January, making $13.65 per hour. He stated that Rossford's crossing guards are actually school employees rather than city employees like Perrysburg. Committee members discussed crossing guards with Chief Jones, and that if it is a busy intersection, he will make sure someone is there. I asked if they will be purchasing 44 new tasers, which was a part of the budget, and if there is any resale value to the old ones. Chief Jones stated there is potentially some resale value, although very small. Mr. Weber asked about auctions. Ms. Rathburn said they will begin using a new company and that she hopes to get higher bids this way. Ms. Bourne asked if we could have an officer at the council meetings, and Chief Jones answered that it is something we could look into or talk about. I asked if there was anything not in the budget that they needed, and Chief Jones said that everything is there and they were well taken care of besides the second floor, which will be in the amended budget. Ms. Gaba stated that Chief Ruiz will be at the next committee meeting to discuss, and then she gave the committee a general overview of the fire department's budget. Ms. Weber asked about Code Red. Ms. Gaba explained that it is a service that the city currently uses for weather alerts. It can also be used to alert citizens of certain things such as a water main breaks or a high-speed chase. Ms. Gaba stated that the replacement engine costing $900,000 will go back into the amended budget. Golf carts. Chief Jones said that with golf carts it will be difficult to enforce from a safety standpoint. Golf carts cannot go more than 20 miles per hour. This means they are at a disadvantage already on the road that is a 25 miles per hour people speed. Are backing up, you may not see the golf cart, as they might semi-trucks, as well as semi-trucks being on those roads. Ms. Bourne agreed that it is a safety issue. I said that it was brought to the committee and needed to go to do its due diligence, and that he appreciates Ms. San Pedro's and Chief Jones's diligence. Mr. Weber agreed that it is not the right choice at this time. I suggested that we keep the information on file because this matter probably will not go away. Ms. Bourne wanted to address the parks having issues with bathrooms and vandalism. Chief Jones said that they were able to identify the individuals who were responsible for some of the vandalism, that they are looking to put some camera systems in place in some of the parks in various locations throughout the city. Chief Jones said that in the meantime, they will also be putting more patrol in the parks. Ms. Bourne also mentioned the issue of alcohol in the parks. Chief Jones said that sometimes it is an issue because alcohol can be concealed in a tumbler. Ms. Sanbero clarified that alcohol can be allowed in the parks if there is a permit and it is approved. The alcohol must be enforced in a fenced-in area or with clearly defined borders. The art sculpture event and discussion did go through the process and had a permit. That concludes the minutes for the October 26th meeting. I do have a resolution. I would like to introduce Resolution 60-2021 and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Bourne?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Water?
Yes.
Resolution 60, 2021, a resolution authorizing a 5-year agreement with Motorola Solutions, Inc. and an amount not to exceed $148,218 for maintenance support and SUA 2 services and declaring an emergency.
I move that Resolution 60-21 be passed as an emergency measure.
Second.
Roll?
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. Bourne?
Yes.
I was going to say discussion, but we don't need that. It's all good.
Our next scheduled meeting is November 23rd at 6 p.m.
Recreation Committee?
Hello, Mr. Mayor. I do not have an official report because we haven't met this month yet. We will be meeting November 9th at 6:30 p.m. We did have a crack meeting last week that I did attend. It went on for quite a while, but it was pretty productive, I think, for all the members. And they did bring up some things that they wanted me to mention to City Council tonight, so I'm bringing them up again since I've mentioned them before. One was about the McKinley Woods area and about what we would be doing about that. If we'll be looking at that, will we be making that into an area, will we be making that into a park? That was brought up by them. I'm just sharing what they said. They also said they wanted no electric hookup at the park over here, Woodlands Park, because of the light pollution. They voted on all these. These were all brought to me to bring to you from before. The crosswalks, and they wanted to have an update on that, and since Barry just spoke, I was going to interject, but I mentioned it now. They wanted to know if we could have an update and have that come to the safety committee about the crosswalks between Rotary Park and Rivercrest Park. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, planning and zoning?
No report, Your Honor. We meet on November 10th at 5:30 p.m.
Personnel?
Yes, all right, so I do have a report for you. The meeting took place on October 26, 2021. President were myself, committee members Mark Weber, Tim McCarthy, and some members from the administration. We approved the minutes, and we reviewed proposed changes for various sections 266 of the administrative code. It was our job to take those proposed revisions and study those for the next meeting and send any questions to the administration. Then we reviewed the 2022 budget. Ms. Alfine reviewed the proposed 2020 budget for Human Resources Office, noting that all those salaries had been combined into one line item, and then there was an additional position of $75,000 for a safety and health coordinator. I asked for some additional information for a side-by-side comparison. Mr. Weber asked about seeing what each person makes, as well as any fluctuations in salary. I also requested that we review those changes in pay and review all personnel pay ranges each year during a certain period of time. Ms. Cabot said she would pass that along to the mayor. Ms. Cabot wanted to make the committee aware that they were looking for a public information officer to go part-time to full-time. I asked if that could be a salary position instead of hourly. The administration explained the job duties qualified to be an hourly position plus overtime if necessary. Ms. Cabot stated that Chief Jones and Mayor Mackin are looking into 3 additional officers for next year's budget, adding 1 officer to each shift. She also stated that Public Utilities is looking for 3 additional operators. The only other new position being requested is Public Service to add an arborist. And then we discussed the law director and prosecutor positions, potential amendments to the code, and suggested sections of review of the charter concerning those positions. I stated that the idea behind this is to have the law director be independent and have them only answer the mayor and city council. I would also like to see the prosecutor put on the level of department head where they are responsible to the city administrator, to the mayor and city council. Mr. McCarthy stated that having the prosecutor report to the city administrator is fine with him. I also thought the law director should not have to worry about the direction the city administrator is moving things when it comes to legal analysis of things. Committee members all agreed to have legislation drawn up to the next committee meeting in November. There was no further business, so we adjourned. Next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 23rd at 5 p.m. And I have no legislation tonight, so that's my report.
Thank you very much. Not sure which one is next.
Public Utilities.
Public Utilities.
You know, finally move up, he said,
Well,
I appreciate it.
Jacob, you'll get your time.
Yeah, thanks. The meeting was called to order at 6:36 p.m. on October 27th by Chairperson Jonathan Smith, committee members present were Jane Attorney, Jonathan Smith, and Barry Van Hoosen. Also present were Bridget Cabot, City Administrator, Amber Rathburn, Finance Director Kate Sandretto, Law Director Alice Gassi, Director of Public Utilities. So is Matt Schulman, who is also the Deputy Director of Public Utilities. Citizen concerns. So Paul Smithers of Locust Street stated that he and his neighbors are all concerned about the amount of water in their yards. He said that the streets are needing access to drainage and that their plants and trees are submerged in water for so long that they are becoming damaged or needing replaced. Mr. Smith and Ms. Gadsby discussed the Grassy Creek Storms Water Master Plan that was created by Hazen and Sawyer with Mr. Smithers, and they will be emailing him a copy of it. Kate, I think you have his email. I tried to send an email and it bounced back. I don't know if you have any other communication. So that's just something we could talk a little bit afterwards, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Okay.
Ms. Gassi say that there are priority projects in place over a number of years regarding CSOs and SSOs, and mentioned that the city hosts rain barrel workshops. Water and sewer rate study draft report, Mr. Michael Maker, the executive consultant with New Gen Strategies and Solutions, presented over Zoom the updated water and sewer rate draft study report. He highlighted the changes from his last presentation in the public utilities meeting. The purchase of water from Toledo is actually based on the contract rate increases. The recommendation is to adopt the recommended charges and rates for the planning period of 2022 to 2026, and to review the rates and charges on an annual basis. A study like this is only necessary every 4 to 5 years. Mr. Smith asked if the initial presentation did not include the Toledo rate increase, which Mr. Maker confirmed is true, and that this number is more accurate. Mr. Smith asked about reducing the minimum charge for usage and how would it change the figures. Mr. Maker explained that this would mean less guaranteed revenue. Mr. Van Hoosen asked what has caused the spike in revenue for the sewer side. Mr. Maker explained that there will be a $1.5 million surplus, which will be used for future years when there is a slight deficit. An award the bid of the 1.5 MG elevated water tower painting. Ms. Andrea explained that we need our State Route 199 elevated tower tank painted. Of the 9 bids received, all came up well under the estimates, and ultimately Seven Brothers Painting Inc. was the lowest and best bid. Mr. Attorney, asked if this is for maintenance reasons and not for decorative reasons, which Ms. Cinderello confirmed is true to prevent a water crisis in Perrysburg. The committee members were curious if the athletic piece is included, and it is, although it has not yet been determined. Ms. Cinderello also noted that this was the first use of their new electronic bid system and that it went well, and they are very pleased with it. The committee has no objection, but wants to have a say in the athletic part of the water tower. The committee agreed 3-0 to recommend this to council. Sewer credit tabulation, there was no issues except for just a couple small things. We then moved on to review the budget. Ms. Godsey walked the Public Utility Committee members through the 2022 department budget. Mr. Smith asked about the Fort Mage Road ditch work as well as the multi-use pack. Ms. Cavett said there will be a scoping meeting on November 1st, 2021. Mr. Smith also brought up multiple grant opportunities and wanted to know if we are applying for those. Ms. Cavett stated those grants will slow down the process, but the grants could be used for connection pieces from Sutton Place. The committee members agreed that the grant could be used to continue the multi-use path after Sutton and suggested looking at that while this project is being worked through. Ms. Cavett noted that Public Utilities is requesting 4 new position totals, 3 operators, field employees, and 1 supervisor overseeing everything out in the field. Mr. Smith asked about the replacement of the water valves. Ms. Gassi explained that those water valves mostly in intersection where water lines cross because if there is a water main break, the area of concern needs to be isolated in order to reduce the total number of customers impacted. Mr. Van Hoosen asked if there is a timeline we are being given. Ms. Gassi said that it is a 5-year period, which we are already into. So we'll be asking for some forbearance at the next inspection. Mr. Smith asked if the committee could see a job description for the 4 new positions. Mr. Smith asked about the reroute for the sanitary sewers and if it will help with some of the CSOs and SSOs. Ms. Gassi said that it is an issue on the south side of Grassy Creek and is not causing backups. Mr. Smith asked if there is anything not in the budget that they would like to see in there. Ms. Gassi responded they were not denied any requests and that they do appreciate the replacement vehicles, but there's not anything on the wish list per se. Mr. Attorney asked about the water tower and if there are contingent funds in place. Ms. Gassi said that yes, there is 10%, not spelled out in the resolution. Mr. Van Hoosen asked if there is anything being held off for the amended budget in their departments. And Ms. Cabot stated that nothing is being held off unless the 2021 project carries over that is already budgeted for. In other business, Mr. Smith asked about a wastewater treatment plant capacity. Ms. Gassi said there is a growth ability for new homes and or development. And there was some discussion between Ms. Gotsi, Ms. Cabot, and committee members regarding some overflows. The meeting adjourned at 8:17 p.m. and our next scheduled meeting is Monday, November 29th at 6:30 p.m. So that is a change from our normal meeting. With that being said, I do have one piece of legislation, and I would like to introduce Resolution 61, 2021, and move the rule be suspended to allow first reading by number and title only, and dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Matroni,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen,
Yes.
Mr. Water.
Yes.
Resolution 61, 2021, a resolution awarding a bid and agreement with Seven Brothers Painting, Inc., not to exceed $438,725 for the State Route 199 elevated water tank painting project.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a discussion.
Let me move it real quick. So I move that Resolution 61, 21 be passed.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I read this through, and obviously I don't have a problem with it being painted. However, the language that is written in section 1 states that the city council authorizes the award of the bid for the State Route 199 elevated water tank painting project with Seven Brothers Painting, Inc. And the mayor and director of finance are authorized to execute the agreement with Seven Brothers Painting, Inc. for the State Route 199 elevated waiver tank painting project in an amount not to exceed $438,025, as outlined in the quote attached hereto and incorporated herein as an Exhibit A. And specifically, it says, and the mayor and director of finance are further authorized to approve all change orders considered necessary for this project in the amount and not to succeed 10% of the agreement for an additional amount of $43,872.50. I have issue with that because I think that takes the power away from Perrysburg City Council. You're the ones that vote on allocating money. I don't think that should be left up to the mayor. No offense, Mayor.
To this, I have the same question, but it's not about that because we've had previous discussions that we're trying to get away from a system where we're coming back to council, we're anticipating that. I understand the change order. What's the process of getting that 10% on this one? Because I didn't see that outlined in the report.
And I would have to defer to Ms. Godsey on the calculations of using 10% versus 8% or 7%. I don't know if it's the magnitude of the job, the complexities of the job.
It was the recommendation from our new city engineer that 10% was the appropriate number for this, based on the size of the contract and the complexities and the potential for needing change orders.
That's not much.
I know it's not, I just wanted to get in the
That
habit
is-
of reviewing
yeah.
the percentage because we do
I
see that fluctuate.
directly spoke with the with the engineer, and his recommendation was 10%. It was confirmed by Ms. Godsey, the head of utilities.
We can try and make sure in future construction projects, we explain that amount. But in response to your question, that's exactly what you're authorizing. You're authorizing the expenditure of the money and, if needed only, change orders, which would come back to council if they're in a specific amount that would be explained.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, it sounded, if I read this correctly, it says basically you and the
Right.
director of finance.
You're authorizing us to
Would be
extend.
authorizing, I didn't say that I was doing that, I was questioning
Okay,
why it's
well.
there.
That's pretty much standard, but okay. Sure.
The other point of discussion, I just want to echo, and this was in the report, that this does not include the artistic component that potentially could be reviewed later. I appreciate the committee talking about that.
It includes, we're painting it.
Yeah.
It does.
We're gonna put a logo on there, and that's it.
So I guess with that question, I mean, with the aesthetic piece, is that something that we should have on here that gets authorization from council?
I would feel more comfortable with that.
I'll let you answer that, but that's not.
I was just going to state, as part of their base bid, this firm has an allocation in there for the painting of the water tower.
Right. So what is painted is an administrative function.
So it could still be a council function.
Because I will say this, I totally disagree with a logo being slapped on there. I think it's a complete missed opportunity if we're spending the time to paint it. This is right next to 75, a highly traveled road. It's an opportunity to make people remember Perrysburg
without driving by. It's a chance to make a statement in a 10-second window as people are driving by, and I think it's a huge oversight to just put a logo up there, like a lot of the other cities are doing. I would be inclined to vote against this ordinance if we're authorizing the painting of a logo on there, and we're not exploring. We have artists in the community, we have other things that I think should be considered at all.
Do we have time on it?
We're reviewing that, and so I would vote against this if that's what I'm authorizing. Because in the report, it seemed like the committee wanted further approval to review potential artistic ads. So that's why I want to know, I want clarification on what I'm voting for.
Well, I think just go ahead.
When you talk about logo, you're talking about the city of Perrysburg logo.
Yeah.
City of Perrysburg, the new
And
branding.
it has to be better than what's on it now, come on.
And I don't want to sell it for that. I'm not knocking our new logo. I think we're missing an opportunity to do something a little different with potentially a logo on there. But, I mean, that's
It could get lost in all that other stuff.
I don't even know what that other stuff is.
Well, I'm just hypothetically, if you go and decorate it, put sunflowers on it and stuff, you could potentially lose, it should be a statement, not. Anyway.
Well, if the council wants to spend, well, I'll let you answer a variety of questions, and then we'll tell the administration's view, and if council wants to vote no and risk the issues with non-compliance, knock yourself down.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, the water tower, the contract allows for the water tower to be taken out of service on April 15th for a, I believe, 45-day period, during which all the painting has to be done, all the interior, the exterior, and then put back in service. This contract would give the contractor notice that they are getting this job, and if there is any artwork other than a standard logo, a standard type of aesthetic element to this, that's going to take more time, and if we cannot be in the position to delay them taking the tank out of service on April 15th, because that will hurt us. We want, temperatures have to be high enough to do this work, but we want the project done and put back in service before the high water demand period begins.
And I would add, what is currently on there is not good. We're replacing, that's not fair. It was appropriate at the time. We have a time constraint. We want to put the new logo up if we want, as some people have suggested, to maybe make it more like the silos downtown. That's going to cost money. We need to go to our council. We need to raise money. We need to do those kind of things. I'm not sure that we have the time to do that. And I guess I would also say.
So why don't we have the time to do that?
Because we have to get it done within a.
No, I know, but that's a timeline that's completely foreseeable. And it's also something that's completely foreseeable that people may want to see art on the water tower. So I'm sorry, I'm not accepting the fact that, hey, we backed ourselves.
Let me finish. We didn't back ourselves into the corner. What you're saying is we want to put something up on there that is more expensive than the current proposal. Because we know that it probably is going to be other than kind of a basic cost to do that. That's council's prerogative to do. And if council wants to do that, that's fine. But I think that puts it to risk, the timing of getting this done. From my perspective, that wasn't a core function of tax dollars. I understand your point that it should have some appeal, and I think our new logo, our new branding will do that. But people are not, from the studies we've looked at, and we did look, basically said that, people Google, they don't look at the water tower other than instant, and they're not looking at it for the purposes of why it was done and painted in the 1990s. If council wants to vote against it, that's council's prerogative. I'm not comfortable spending more tax dollars on that. So there needs to be then, council needs to raise money to address Because I don't think that's the best use, and we need to make sure we do it in a way that's timely, given the maintenance requirements from what we're being told, so.
Can I ask Ms. Batsey a question, just real quick? If the grain elevators can be painted with grain in them, why can't this water tower have that artwork done after there's water in it? I mean, after it's back in use? What reason would there be that we can't finish the artwork or logo or whatever we
Yeah.
decide after it's back in service?
Yes. Mr. President, Councilman Weber, there's the issue of condensation with the water inside the tank. That condensation makes it more difficult to paint the exterior.
So I knew you'd have an answer.
When the contractor bid on this, he put weather days in, because you mentioned temperature, but also moisture has a tremendous, the humidity in the air can impact it. And this contract came under bid was really low. And us voting no, we have the potential of when it goes back out to bid, because it was so early in the season, it being twice the amount of what we're paying now.
So what I will just point out a couple things is, we talked about the cost of it. We had budgeted about $800,000 for this project. So there's definitely wiggle room when it comes to that. I'm trying to do something on there. I will also make mention that we have talked on numerous occasions that there was an appetite to look at what was going to go up there artistically, and now it's as if the administration has backed into a corner on this is what we're going to do regardless. I know that there was, it was specifically asked me, I gave some suggestions that said, no, we're going this way. Regardless, the appetite of the council wanted to do something a little more, in my personal opinion, was overlooked throughout this process without different options.
I would disagree with that. And I would also say, again, this goes to how you view tax dollars. The fact that we're substantially under budget, and given the supply chain issues, that we would be run the risk of substantially spending more money, just because we have it budgeted, my experience as a taxpayer is, that's not to be, let's go to the edge. Let me finish. It is a reasonable expectation of cost. If we can do it, our administration has zealously tried to save taxpayers' dollars and done it in a way that will lead to a good product. If it costs substantially more than this, I don't think that that's what taxpayers would view as the best use of their tax dollars. But that's council's prerogative. And I would disagree that we did consider other options.
Have we done any public outreach to support that conclusion?
Appreciate that too.
Yeah, we have talked to various, kind of what the cost of the various art would be, and
No, I'm talking about our citizens.
it's a maintenance. We haven't put it out to.
Well, it is a maintenance until it's not.
Well, we have not. The answer to that is no.
Okay.
Because I can tell you that there's going to be a lot of citizens that are going to be upset that there is this change coming.
So I guess
You're
this
gonna
leads.
get it either way.
This leads to my next question. How, the shutdown period, because I'm going to present, I never want to sacrifice health and safety. I understand deadlines, and getting, it doesn't sound like there's going to be an aesthetic portion other than potentially a logo this year. I'm willing to accept that. I think it's probably appropriate at this point. It's great that it comes in under what we budgeted for. So is this a realistic thing that we can shut down the water? So say we go on to make a decision next year, we budget for an aesthetic component. Can we have an expectation that we won't completely disrupt if we shut down 2 years in a row or a couple years down the line? What's the logistics of that, if you don't mind, Alice?
Mr. President, Councilman Coolman, there probably is a way to do that. However, taking it down again is disruptive to service, disruptive to residents, and applying a different artistic element later, we could not use public utilities water fund revenue.
And I understand the budgeting, there's ways to get that budgeted for. I'm more curious about the disruption to service. Can you elaborate on that? Because you're going to know much more about how that works, how big of a deal it is to get this thing in the first place. I'm just trying to understand that.
I think it would depend on the time of the year you're talking about, because obviously during the winter months, the weather's not conducive to paint adherence. That's why the project is starting in April. If you go past that time and start getting into the heavy watering season, where people are watering their lawns constantly, that could be a service disruption throughout the course of the summer. When it comes to the fall and temperatures, I'm not certainly an expert on paint application onto a large metal object that contains water on the inside. I don't know if you have the same condensation issue fall to early winter or not.
And I'm mainly talking about doing this a separate year during the same time period, because it sounds like that's where we're choosing the time period strategically.
Strategically based on weather.
So what kind of disruptions can we expect with this shut off?
Well, I can't give a good answer because I've never had experience of painting just a logo. It's always been the entire tank, either new construction or repainting.
Can you take me through that? What we can expect with the proposal in front of us, which doesn't include any aesthetic thing. It maybe includes the logo.
Yes,
From what I understand.
yes,
Can you take me through the disruption that we might experience?
Okay, the contractor will do site preparation and as much as they can before the tank is taken out of service, and that April 15th date is best estimate of when temperatures would be conducive to starting a painting project. Then they will, the water will be drained out. They will do the interior work. There is some corrosion, some rust that needs to be addressed on the inside because it hasn't been taken down in over 10 years. So the interior work will be done and any interior coatings applied, and then there's a waiting period for that until that cures. Then the exterior will be sandblasted where necessary and corrosion issues addressed and then painted on the outside.
And I should have maybe made this one. When we shut down that water tower, what does our consumer experience, our water consumer? Like what disruption there?
Well, we will need to do public information ahead of time to let them know that, well, we're working on a plan where our hope is that there will not be disruption to the residents, but they will not be able to water their grass during this period because we don't want to put that much demand on the system. And that's why they're on the contractors on a time element to get that tank done and get it back in service before the watering season begins.
So the goal is no cognizable difference to the consumer other
Right.
than, hey, please don't water your grass while
Right.
this is going on.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's potential that it would be very limited disruption in the future if we decided to budget for an art.
That's what we hope for, that's
Okay.
what we hope
And,
for, but,
obviously, we
yeah.
can't know for sure.
yes.
Okay.
Regarding what you were saying about art, it made me think about Commodore Perry, right? We just went to Commodore Perry on the water tower.
Well, I think my point is it's a larger discussion that hasn't happened, unfortunately, and maybe we can have that in the future. That those answers make me more comfortable that potentially we can budget for an artistic component down the line. With limited disruption.
Happy to look into that if it's a proper expenditure, proper action by council to do that in the amended budget for future next year, not this year, but the next one.
Yeah, I think and the first step is outreach to our citizens to see if that's actually a want. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend I've talked to a bunch of people. I know that to me, that's my position. I've talked to a couple people about the water tower, but those close to you tend to share your opinions when it comes to that stuff. So some public outreach might be insightful.
And one of the things I'll just point out is this is a generational change in what you put up there. It's something that's going to last 20 to 30 years. It's something that,
I disagree. I mean, we just said that, well, we can talk about it in the 2 years or a year or two.
we can, but I mean, once you're doing it right now, it's going to be that much harder to make that change in the future. And we're at the point where we've pretty much crossed that line, that it's going to be more costly to do it later than it is to do it now because we have the workers already there. It's going to be more cost effective to try to do this now. And I understand your point about people using Google, but a lot of people use Google. The goal is to get people to use Google to look for your name, to search for Perrysburg, not just to say this is the area. I mean, it's typical marketing for any business. If you ask anybody in an ad agency, they're going to want you to look up your specific name first, than just looking for what's a place in Toledo area that I can go see. We want to look at for what can we get people to want to come here.
And that's why, in my opinion, if the CBB wants to spend money towards this kind of, this is a convention and bureau issue, not a direct taxpayer dollar. I prefer, it'd be my expectation that I would rather have tax dollars spent at core business functions, police, fire, roads, water sanitation, parks, those kind of things. If the CBB believes that it is, that this is a good way to attract attention to business, that is a proper use of CBB funds. That's my take on priorities of tax dollars. We've been charged, and we saw that you look at social media. Social media is clear that they don't want tax dollars wasted. They want to save tax dollars. And here is an effort by this administration to really not to go to the extent we can budget it. And I would recommend Alice and her team. We got a good price. We did it early before the things happened, and now we're saying we want to turn over this. That's my perspective on that. I don't think it's sound fiscal policy or good business practice.
Well, I'm going to disagree with the comment one more time that this was something that surprised, because this has been mentioned at numerous committee meetings that council would like to have some same aesthetic, and then to say at the last second that this is something that we're moving forward with.
Well, there's also, there is an issue of councils, is it, is this this is a administrative function.
And you're asking for council's approval, which is where we come in.
Right.
So, I
But
mean,
we have to have council's approval for expenditure of tax dollars.
no, and I understand that, but you also can save tax dollars and people's money by budgeting for joint projects. So it would have been great to talk to CBB to see if they're interested in using our paint. Those conversations didn't happen. That's what I'm trying to bring
Well, the
light to.
CBB
And there may be a desire to have something other than Perrysburg logo on there, which is the same exact design that a lot of cities have. This is a huge paint job. I'm just saying I would have liked to explore the idea.
What's wrong with that? Why, well, what's wrong with that? You talk about identity and promoting business and stuff. We don't want a message to get lost in the graphics, which is potentially what you're talking about. Instead of seeing that and saying Perrysburg, you can lose a message and to me, sometimes when it comes to advertising and marketing your brand, the simpler is the best way to go. That's all I got,
Two questions, Alice? Okay, good thing. How critical are we to get this tank redone this year? Can it be put off a year?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, no. No, it's already overdue. It's already overdue for an inspection. Or, well, it's been inspected. It's already overdue for having the inspection report found deficiencies. Those deficiencies have to be addressed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Second question. If we were to want to do the artwork at another date, would there be any reduction in cost by them not doing the logo now?
Respectfully, I would not recommend putting up a blank, having a blank. I would not recommend that. The new city logo.
Unless if a decision hasn't been made yet exactly what to go with there. I was just wondering if we told them, well, don't do the logo just yet. We'll get back up there.
Typically, the non-performance of a contract line item would be a deduct that would be a credit to the city that would not be performed.
We could do that.
Typically.
Oh,
and then you potentially face it being 3 times as much next year or the year after.
So this conversation reminds me, when you finish, Mark?
oh yes, yeah. I just was trying to get some more information.
This conversation reminds me a little bit about what we did or didn't do at the Divergent Diamond. We looked at that as more than just a generational signature. And we found money we went in combination with the county. And because that's a permanent structure. We're not talking about the signs, the exit signs. The city council deemed it to be important to put that kind of signature on our only gateway. So this water tower often, you will say, well, you live in Perrysburg or I'm from Perrysburg. They'll say, I know where that is. And you know why they know where, the travelers know where it is? Because what they see on the water tower. They see the word Perrysburg, regardless of the other stuff that might or might not be on there. It sounds as though we have some artwork, because it sounds like we determined that it was too expensive. So I would like to see that artwork. Well, I heard that it was deemed to be too expensive. So we don't know what those numbers are, right?
We didn't get an estimate for who.
Okay, I misunderstood.
It was just the lows and brands, the city of Perrysburg, and then the state of Ohio.
The words.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the state of Ohio compete.
Okay. And that may end up being appropriate, but I'm struggling with the timeline being April, and here we are in November. If that's the artwork we choose, it's already done. Then it's a question of what is it gonna cost? So I'm not sure, we have to do this. I wish we had an opportunity to put a signature that's representing this community on that water tower. It was just a personal wish of mine for a while. So can we get a bid to see if the CVB can afford it, see if we can contribute to it, and then I understand that we're not wanting to waste taxpayer money. I appreciate that approach. I really do. Sometimes if we can partner, it would diminish the cost of that a little bit. This is a 30-year stamp on our community. So I would like to see the artwork, and I think we have a lot of it already designed with what the city's done. But what would the cost of that be? That's all.
Yeah, I don't understand what you're
Well, artwork meaning that if it's this city of Perrysburg,
saying. It's our brand.
yeah, it could
We
be
can show
brand.
that to you.
I'm sorry?
We can show that to you.
Well, but there's a cost function, so we know if that's what we choose.
That's what we're doing. That's what this is.
When you say logo, I think of just the
No, it says City of Perrysburg, then with the state of Ohio with the P, like all the letterhead.
I can't see it, so I'm sure it could be forwarded to me. I don't see
Stop the
it.
station.
Yeah.
The letterhead.
Getting back to what we were talking about earlier, with finishing artwork, if you're gonna talk about something that people think of Perrysburg is, they think of Commodore Perry. So why can't you put at least a head and shoulders up there?
Well, I think this is to summarize what's going on, I think it kind of showcases there should have been a bigger conversation with how much dialogue we've had just tonight on different design ideas and things like that. I think personally we're missing the opportunity. I'm going to vote for this because it's needed. And I hope we explore the option of adding potential artwork in the future, and hopefully it doesn't cost us more because of a missed conversation.
And I pretty much echo Corey's. Make sure your name right today. It's we talked about would it be more? We don't know at this point if it would have cost more to do something a little different. To throw out that it could cost more, it would depend on what we're looking at and how much time and energy it would take to put that on there versus just the word Perrysburg with. And I'm looking at a letterhead, and I don't think it's what I'm looking at the letterhead. Hopefully you can share this with everyone exactly what the administration is talking about. But these are definitely would have been an important conversation, and I think that with the conversation we're having here, it's not just coming from us. It has. There's going to be some elements of the community that will share similar sentiments to what we're saying on what they would like to see up there. It would have been nice to have some different options to know for certain what that could be. And I would like to see us move forward with some identity, some options. If there's a way to make a change before this April and it fits within the budget, I think that's important to look at here over the next couple of months. if at all possible, to come up with a couple ideas over a couple months, bring back to see if it would fit within that replacement cost. After that, I still think it's important, if we don't move forward, just to continue to explore that over the next year or two to see if there makes sense to make any additions. That's really where my thought is. I don't want us to end this conversation tonight. Sometimes that tends to happen. And I would like to see if there's any additional options that can come before us before, well, we got, what, 5 months until that happens?
It changes the scope of the contract. It could cost us significantly more.
We don't know until we ask.
You're right, you're absolutely right. And I have no trouble with the way it is now, I have no trouble with the logo. I happen to like the logo. I just, don't be surprised if it will be more because of the supply chain and they'll make it a change order and contractors love change
Well,
orders.
and I think the point is that it wouldn't be more if we had some opportunity to look at this and explore this.
It will be because you're changing the scope of the contract.
No, what I'm saying is we had the opportunity to discuss this before we're at this point, or had some suggestions on this, we wouldn't be at that point. It just boils down to communication at that point, but.
I guess I'm understanding, if I'm summarizing this correctly, Mr. Smith, you're indicating something separate from the contract. Am I right on this when you're talking about that?
If there's a way to look and make a change order on it.
That's the way I understood it.
We'd be happy to look at cost of, I don't know what.
Specifically, like the
You
deletion of
don't-
that line item and potentially bringing in
But you
their
know,
own or
That's
alternative.
the problem.
Yeah.
We have something before council. I'm very hesitant, well, council can do what it would like, but I think it would be a disservice to the residents to lose this price.
I think it was a disservice to the residents that we didn't have a conversation.
Well, you've made that perfectly clear. I think we have had various conversations, you and I think that there's a disagreement as to what the purpose of that is and the goal of that. And I think if you would ask all 7 people on council and the mayor what their view of what it should be out there. But at a certain point, it's a simple cost issue. If we want to go to the CBB, once the CBB hires somebody, and to investigate how it can potentially bring in business or what's the best ways to advertise the city, I think that is a use of CBB funds that would be effective. So, I mean, we agree to disagree. So, any other discussions?
Just a question, if you came up with alternative artwork that might better suit the administration and council, could that be accomplished through a change order to the current contract?
I would say no, because somebody's gonna have to create that artwork, and that wouldn't be the contractor. and
Yeah,
it
I mean,
would
I
be
believe
city
they
staff.
have to create it, that's pretty.
Somebody would have to be hired to do that.
So, you're right, we got about a 4-month lead time.
So you'd have to do RFPs, RFQs, one or the other, to select an artist, call for an artist, whatever the case may be.
and
Get a
then,
contract, have them produce selection of options, send around a selection of options, various methods of obtaining feedback on that, but it is not an overnight process.
Is that something that could be accomplished in 4 months?
Depends on the cost of it, if it has to go to council. We could not use water funds to do that.
right. And typically, when you do this type of change order, it'll be time and materials, and it can go through the roof.
And then, if that is done and artwork is produced, then we would take that back to the contractor and have them tell us if that's within the scope of their allocation. Typically, it won't be because it's words with with a one-dimensional picture versus artwork that may be multicolored and much more complicated design. Then they would give us a price on that. We would then have to come back to council.
I'm ready to vote. I will end it with, I am very pleased with the price, so thank you for the hard work on obtaining that price. That's well below budget. I don't want to lose the focus of that. This is a good use of taxpayer money. Currently, I have different opinions about what should potentially be on there, the discussion around that, so, thank you.
I think there's a
Oh,
motion in a second.
Roll call, sorry. Okay.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes?
Ms. Bourne?
No, I cannot do that because of the additional 10% given to the mayor. That's should be council's decision.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
That is my report.
Thank you. All right. Jan, you're up.
Okay.
All right.
Meeting is called to order at 5:35 by Chairperson Jan Attorney. Committee members present was Jan Attorney Jonathan Smith and Cory Coleman, who arrived a little late. Also present were Bridget Kevitt, City Administrator, Kate Sandrillo, Law Director, Amber Rathburn, Finance Director. No citizens' concerns. The minutes were approved from the 23rd. Fall Street subdivision contract tree planting. We're looking to plant 211 trees, with the majority of them being paid by planters and new developments. North French Nursery won the bid for this project. Mr. Smith has brought arborist position. Administration stated that employees are internally have all the qualifications to handle this. In fact, Public Service is looking to create arborist position. Mr. Smith asked if the trees be going down 25 along a multi-use path. Ms. Cabot explained that they designed a multi-use path, they will be able to understand the space left in the right away. If there's enough room for trees. Right. The committee agreed 3-0 to send this to council. 2022 budget. Ms. Cabot walked through the 2022 budget. Repairs and maintenance lines includes Rivercrest Park, restrooms at Rivercrest Municipal Park, Green Meadows Pond erosion, and running a water line in-house. Mr. Smith brought up the kayak launch and wants it in regardless of whether or not there's grant money for it, which Ms. Cabot noted. Mr. Coleman asked about the inspector, which is explained to actual city electrician and building maintenance technician. Mr. Smith asked if when purchasing office supplies, etc., they buy local produced or made in America. Ms. Cabot stated that there's no requirement and codified ordinance or policies. Ms. McTurnan mentioned the fuel costs affecting the service committee in many ways, the operation equipment, the materials used on the road. Ms. Cabot stated the budget amendment process and we can evaluate and allocate more money if needed. Mr. Coleman asked about the safety training line item will be absorbed if we hire a safety coordinator. Ms. Cabot confirmed it's true. Mr. Coleman asked about maintenance and if they received specific training on electrical vehicles being added to the fleet. Ms. Cabot suggested they do need an annual training. Mr. Coleman has brought to his attention the city's public fill stations too much slower than others, and asked to look into it and something the city should consider should they get electric vehicles in their own station. Mr. Smith wants to make sure the cars we purchase are beneficial to American workers, and we're looking at that. Mr. Smith asked about crosswalk indicators and if they are in the budget. Ms. Cabot stated they will be in the amended budget. Ms. Materney asked if there's a regular scheduled control device replacement that happens automatically. Ms. Cabot said Bob Ross is budgeting two each for the next several years. Ms. Materney stated big idea to have solar panels with battery backup. So if the electricity go out, there would be battery backup for the lights, traffic lights to run. Mr. Coleman asked if there's a breakdown on what gets recycled. The committee members all agreed there would be good quarterly updates on the effectiveness of the recycling program. Other business, Mr. Coleman asked for the update on the closure of Indiana Avenue. Ms. Cabot said that the contractor is still looking to replace the subcontractor. Mr. Coleman asked if there's a way to sign up for emails regarding traffic updates. Ms. Cabot stated that is something we have at the moment, and that she'll bring it up with IT, engineering, and new PRO when we hire one. There'd be no further business. Meeting was adjourned at 6:30. Now,
I was going to ask real quick about the meeting dates. I know that we moved.
I'm sorry, what?
The meeting date.
Yeah.
For service committee, since that's the day before Thanksgiving.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
Do we
And
want
I
to-
will need a different, I will not be able to attend that day.
Yeah, because I'm not going to be talking. Oh, I thought we moved it before yours, no?
If we didn't, I'm okay with moving it to the 29th.
Okay. Yeah, that's,
And actually, personnel committee, I'll probably request a change date on that too.
I know we talked about it, but.
So we talked about it too, and I saw that on there, so I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yeah. Okay, with that, I have 3 resolutions to bring before ordinances, resolutions, ordinance, whatever. Bring before council.
Do you want to separate the resolution from the ordinance, or do you want?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna separate them all,
Okay.
or,
Do you want to?
no, yeah, let's read the resolution and 2 ordinances together, if there's no
That
objections.
sounds good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
I would like to introduce a resolution 62-2021, and move that the rules be suspended, allow for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Bourne?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Oh,
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
I move that resolution 62-2021 be passed as emergency measure.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
I gotta read it. Resolution 62,
No. I'm dead.
2021, a resolution authorizing an agreement with North Branch Nursery, Inc., not to exceed $82,754 for the 2021 fall tree planting and declaring an emergency.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes, did she move for it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I just thought, all right, yes.
Ms. Bourne?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
And Mr. McCarthy?
It's like we're all new up here today.
Okay. I would like to introduce resolutions, ordinance 50, I would like to introduce ordinance 55-2021 and ordinance 56-2021 and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only and to dispense with the second and third reading.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Bourne?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ordinance 55, 2021, accepting streets, alleys, and green spaces per contract ordinance 1295.07 for Summerfield Plat 3, declaring an emergency. Ordinance 56, 2021, accepting streets, alleys, and green space per codified ordinance 1295.07 for Coventry Point Plat 2, and declaring an emergency.
I move that ordinances 56-2021 and 55-2021 be passed as emergency measure.
Second.
Discussion?
Well, just one quick question that I just have for Alice. I brought this up in the public utilities meeting. Just want to clarify, this is a question I think all of us received on council. With these new plats that are going in, with the concern on the CSOs and the SSOs. I'm asking you, Alice, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was writing an email, sorry.
No, sorry, for these plants, these locations, these areas are not going to be, have an issue with contributing to the CSOs and the SSOs to the wastewater treatment plant. They have a clear access to the wastewater treatment plants for the, I see a person shaking her head.
I think it's around the west side of town.
Yeah,
Short answer, yes.
so short answer, yes, they will not be contributing towards that, just for clarification.
And another clarification I'd like to make is the service committee has talked ad nauseum, passionate, now that's a joke on my part, about the signals for pedestrians, and we are acting on putting them in various locations. Jonathan Smith has a list.
Yeah. I think it's also might be, that would be a budget item for.
Yeah.
No further discussion, roll call?
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. Bourne?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
That's all I have. Next meeting is November 29th,
29, 5:30 p.m.
5:30 p.m.
Any other business come for council?
I'll just wish everyone luck tonight.
Good luck, everybody. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, hearing no objection.